So today I want to be talking about the best players you can get in each position, but being a bit more realistic. We already know the top players, the R9s, the Mbappes, the Eusebios, the Cruyffs, Maldini, the top end Virgil. Of course, everybody can say they are going to be the best. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but I want to show you what I think are the best players for your budget, for the cheapest option, but also getting the most out of them. When it comes to keepers, to be honest, I've said it in any meta keeper list, in any ranking or anything like that, keepers are very simple this year. Yes, well, and to be honest, in every year, icons are always going to be fantastic. They add the links, they're easy to put in, and half the time they can be slightly better. But realistically for me, I don't see why you need to go any more than a Courtois or an Edison, an Alisson, a ter Stegen. I think the three that I personally would go with here would be these three. These are the most common I've personally seen. Courtois being number one for many reasons and links that you can get him with. Alisson for the Prem, I think he's just over Edison at this point for the moment for me personally. And then Edison, if you've got a long ball pass on him, if you want to utilise him with Man City players, then obviously you've got that as well. I don't think you need to go any more than these three keepers for me. I think they are considerably the best you can get in their position, really. So Courtois personally would be my number one there, and they're the kind of backup two that I would suggest for the price that you're looking at.
If you need coins in FC25, lootbar.gg has you covered. They are the cheapest trading platform on the game, 8 to 10% cheaper than any others, 8% off if you use the code JT11 at the end at checkout, plus you get 5% extra on coins. With the fastest delivery system going, used by many FC25 creators such as Zorky, Manny Plus, and even pro owners. So if you need any coins, head over to lootbar.gg, make sure JT11's in the promo code, and hopefully you enjoy.
When it comes to left backs, again, you've got very, very easy options here. When we look into the top of the top, obviously you're looking at Roberto Carlos, you're looking at Teo Hernandez, and yes, to some extent, Teo, brilliant card. But realistically, when you're looking at him in terms of price, 388, I don't think you need to spend that. I'm being realistic. Not everybody has got millions upon millions of coins. It's definitely easier this year to get coins, or at least even just get packs to potentially get lucky, because that's realistically the main aim that we're looking at here. But again, there's just quite an easy option here. Ferland Mendy. It's absolutely all you need in this game is a Ferland Mendy. Now, price-wise for him, he's now coming in at 51,000. You've got multiple evolutions that you could have put him in. You could literally have made him into an 86 from this, from the We Play Possession into the Brilliant Bon Pastor. I actually did miss out on this one just because I couldn't be bothered to do the evolution. It's kind of the biggest problem we've got. But you could have made him for 70,000 coins and then 50,000 to buy him on top. So 140,000, you've got an 86. I don't need Teo at that point. Even though, yes, if you've got Teo Hernandez, he's going to be fantastic. We've managed to pack him, and he is decent enough. I personally prefer my Ferland Mendy, and obviously the price point is going to be fantastic for him, but I wouldn't necessarily go out and buy him. I don't think he's worth that at this point, when you can get so many other left backs that are obviously on that same sort of chart. We can obviously see a lot of heroes. Robertson, to be honest, is a pretty decent one, to be fair to him. I think he's actually quite a decent left back you can get from an SBC. He's currently coming in at 150, 145. I think it's pretty respectable. Yes, the three-star ain't great. He is going to be more of a wing-back as well. Obviously, with the whipped pass plus, he's got the plus on the wing-back role. So if you play that sort of role, that's going to be fantastic if you don't have anybody else to really sit in that position. Robertson, Nuno Tavares, loads and loads of options you can go with that are just so simple for a left-back. But Mendy, for me, is what it will always come down to. Then we move up to some centre-backs. Again, pretty easy. I feel like there's always just one answer here for any sort of centre-back. If you're looking at gold, if you're going to put any money in, you've got to get Virgil van Dijk. He's always going to be the most efficient price that you could personally pay. He's 170,000 coins at the moment. I think that's pretty respectable for him. He's going to last a fair whack in time to be able to keep him in your team. So that one for me is the easiest one you can go with. Now, if we're going for a pretty standard back here, I'd happily just go with a Saliba next to him. I think if you're going just standard gold, anticipate this year is still very good. I think the aerial plus is definitely taking its toll because of how broken it is at times, but the anticipate for me is still fantastic. The pairing of Saliba, Virgil, and then obviously Mendy have been generational, but there is still plenty of centre-backs you can go with that are of a very good budget. We've obviously got the top of the tops, the Maldinis, the Rios, I suppose, then obviously like Lucio, Company, Yap Stam, but you could easily just go with a lot of the gold cards, to be fair. I don't think there's going to be that much of a crazy difference you're going with. If you went with price, we look at kind of going down into like the under 200k, you kind of look in between the lines of a Militao. I think Van de Ven is definitely one that you want to be considering. I think for the price that you've got him, even his gold card to some extent would definitely give you some play time, but if you can afford to go for the inform, it's just that little bit of an upgrade that he could need. Rudiger, Militao, you've got then going a bit further down, Koyunde if you wanted him at centre-back or right-back, to be fair. Even Luca Bea with an evolution on top would be a fantastic option. But I think when you're looking at kind of gold centre-backs specifically, it would predominantly be Militao, Rudiger. I'd then be looking at maybe like an Arejo. I think that would be kind of where I'd personally be putting my eggs in the basket. So I think for me, I'd probably go... I think Rudiger would be one of them, definitely. Arejo would definitely be second. I think Militao personally would need the actual play style plus, but that's kind of just where we're at with him, to be honest. Right backs, again, there is a lot of options. Plenty of options you can go with right backs here, which I think at the moment I think I'm still on Walker, to be fair. Now, obviously with Walker, very much like Mendy, he had the ability to be able to put into an evolution. Now, the big thing about it really is the fact that you've got almost two broken left back, right backs. Walker less this year than previous years, but still very good from the start. You've got both of them that say were 100k at the start of the game, give or take. You then have a month's time. One can go in two evolutions, one can go in an evolution. Now, it's not necessarily an absolutely broken evolution, but add in that extra 6 dribbling, add in that extra 6 passing, one more defending and physical. Yes, shooting is what it is, and he gets the press proven playstyle plus. It's just going to elapse more time for you to be able to do him and keep him in your team. Now, I do think with Walker this year, slightly less... it's slightly less meta as kind of a fact is for him. There is definitely a solid amount of fullbacks you can go with in that right back role. Obviously, top you're looking at these four: Carfu, Alberto, Turan, Maicon. I think are quite easy, and then obviously Zambrata is up there. But even then, looking at Augusto, a Delo. To some extent, Trent, yes, in his 87, but I'm not necessarily a big fan from my personal game style. Other people will be more than capable with him, but I don't really play the fullback plus, so it's going to be a bit more tricky for me. I just like a fullback. And then when you go kind of down the list of these, you're just running into a Walker realistically. Like I said, Koyunde is going to be a nice option you can go with. You've got a few informs and specials that might be enough, but I personally would go with either Walker or Koyunde at this point if we are trying to save some pennies. It's an easy option. You've kind of got your back line set up there, bit of Prem, bit of La Liga, and then obviously we can run into the midfield. Now, I do think with the centre mid role, it's definitely the most kind of interesting part of a team. I think backline, kind of wingers, and then more than likely strikers are very standard. A lot of the time, the wingers and strikers will be all dependent on who you've packed. If you've packed somebody massive, then obviously he's going to be in the team. But with midfielders, there's so many different options. From all of the evolutions that we've had in the mid, it really makes that balancing very interesting. And obviously, depending on what your team's kind of saying with icons, with heroes, what you need for chemistry is going to be the interesting part as well. Now, obviously, for my personal midfield, if we go into midfield, it's actually been that long that I've sat down and really played that I don't even know my own midfield. Obviously, once I've seen them, I know who they are. And I do need to change them massively. It is, like I said, purely getting the links. I have Jude Bellingham, and then I also have a lovely Valverde. Now, both of them are very, very similar. They're both playmaker plus, which isn't the greatest because I normally like a holding mid and then somebody who's going to be either box to box or a cam. They kind of play very similar roles. So I do need to get rid of one of them. Honestly, at this point, it's probably going to be Bellingham. But then adding a CDM in, I think this is the kind of hardest position to really find one that suits you. A Tchouaméni, absolutely brilliant in it, but obviously it costs quite a bit. Patry, decent defending on her, maybe a little bit smaller of a midfielder, so Valverde could link really well to be able to get her in, but again needs the Spanish links or Barcelona links, which I don't think I do possess. I think she would definitely be one of my options personally. Then you've obviously got a Rodri, even though the pace is definitely lower, defensively is still absolutely sound, and with the catch-up mechanic that we've got at the moment, I still think he could put a shift in. He's obviously got a 92 which works as well. The one that I have been using, but again is very similar, would be a De Jong. De Jong is obviously very good in that role, but he's too similar to both of them. So it's like having the exact same players. I think Zachariah personally would be one of the shouts in terms of a CDM. He again is just absolutely brilliant in that role. Would love an SBC Conte if they're going to give us any higher rateds as well. Tonali was definitely a shout, but once we got Valverde it was kind of bye-bye Tonali really, and then we've just never really put him back in. If we're obviously looking at kind of like your centre mid, and kind of seeing where we can go with them. Again, there's a lot of positions that you can go with for a box to box, a solid DM, a cam, which could give you a solid lead on a centre mid, but I do think it will all depend on who you've packed as well. If you've packed anybody massive, then you're not really going to be looking for anybody. It's going to be a very specific player. I think Putellas is going to be a cracking one to do if you can really be bothered to grind that SBC. It's very expensive, and more than likely you'll pack somebody along the way that just kind of shadows that SBC, unfortunately. But as you go further down, I think at this point the evolutions tend to be a little bit better, to be fair to them. Like the options you can go with that you don't have to pay for, like if you're going for a gold card, if you're looking at a random SBC, I would much rather just go with one of them evolutions. There's so many centre mids that we've been having now that you might as well just go with it. If you look even at any of them, we go to the Ballon d'Or Rodri. This is going to be a perfect one for a DM. So I could just go ahead, pick a Camavinga up. I can go with Jones, Gravenberch, Goretzka, anybody that suits my team. Whack him in there, 80,000 coins. There you go. It's enough to hold a position. So with the midfield, it is very difficult. I don't think there's a set example at this point. I think you might as well just go with an evolution. Add a little bit of flair to the team and just kind of make it your own that way, personally. We'll do right-hand side first. Again, some nice options that I've had over the course, but there is always kind of one easy option you can go with, and that's obviously going to be... Is he right wing, actually? It's going to be... Where is he? He's right mid. I thought he was right mid. Go down. Oh, there he is. Why didn't he pop up before? Traore. I think he's an easy one. He's not necessarily the greatest gift in the world, and especially as we go through the game, he's slowly losing that ability. But for a free card at this point, the Rapid Plus, the ability to get down the wing is absolutely fantastic. The end product is going to be the slight issue at the point, so that's where I'd kind of draw the line with him. Obviously, we're looking at right wings. We did have Hansen, and I'm so glad they're gone. Bale, an unbelievable option if you're looking at the top of the top. But then I think when you're kind of going across it, we've got a bit of Joe Cole. You're looking at a bit of Rodrigo. Dembele is going to be one of my personal favourites, and I think he would be where I would personally go with this. Just check that there's no right mids that we've got. Obviously Garnacho, but he is more of a left-sided player. I think Rosicky, Navas, Rodrigo, it'd probably be about there. So I think for me, I would still always go for the price that you're paying. Dembele is just an unbelievable price. For everything that he gives you, from his Rapid Plus, his 5-5, he's going to be a little bit like Traore, but with a bit more about him. He's going to be predominantly more kind of based on the passing. Dribbling-wise is the exact same. Pace is very similar, both of them with the right foot. The Rapid Plus, but then obviously you've got the 4-4 versus the 5-5. And obviously when it comes to Dembele, he's still not that expensive as well, which is nice. You've got him coming in at, I want to say it was about 30k, was he? Yeah, but give or take about 25,000 now, 26, 27, which I think is phenomenal value for what you can get from him. He's skillful, he gets down the wing, he does the job. And yes, if you wanted to go even cheaper, Adama would be kind of my next option there. Other right mids, right wings that you could look at for cheap, I think you'd be looking kind of down the list a little bit more now. I would say like a Rodman would be a nice option, a little bit more expensive. And then that's kind of really all I'd be looking at. Like you could go really, really cheap and go for the quick step with Diaby. You could even spring out and go for an informed version of him. Hansen's obviously going to be one of my favourite golds that you can go for. And I think that would kind of be about it. I think the informed Diaby would be the shout I personally would go with. Obviously, he's going to come in at a little bit more of a price if we can find him. 85 rated, still got the quick step, which is going to come in at 30,000 coins. Again, very nice. And personally, I do prefer the quick step that little bit more in this game. The only kind of issue that you've got, which to be fair, the fact that Ligue 1 don't have many players that you want to play either, is just getting the links with some French boys as well. Then going over to the left-hand side, personally for me, for a long, long time, we had Rashford. Lovely evolution. He was kind of flexing between a striker and a left mid. Obviously, Rashford was going to be my number one in here. The power shot broken as ever. I think Garnacho is fantastic for what he is, but I personally wouldn't pay the price for him at that range. I think that is just a little bit expensive. It's the fact that we did get him untradeable, so he's kind of there anyway. We might as well use him. We did get very lucky with getting a John Barnes in an SBC, so we have got him at the moment in the team, but again, he's kind of a bit expensive for what he truly is. I personally wouldn't go for him at that price anyway, especially with Black Friday around the corner. You'd be looking for a lot cheaper. Now, left wing is harder for being cheaper because there is a lot of top-end cards, but as you go further down, it isn't as appealing, to be honest. Like, you could do the same as Dembele and go for a Kvaratskhelia for the 5-5, but again, requires the links there. I think Diaz is always a nice option. No playstyle plus him on this version, so I would suggest, if you're looking at a very standard left mid, I would be looking at an evolution. I think that would be the best way to go for, in my opinion, for incredibly cheap. The only other one that I could think of that you could go for as little price as possible away from an evolution would be a Nico Williams. I think he personally, for me, would be the shout I'd go for if you haven't got any evolutions left. If you've used it on a striker, if you've used it on somebody that just doesn't suit this role, Nico Williams is going to be my other shout for this. Which then leaves us to the strikers, which again, strikers, there's loads. There is absolutely loads of strikers. Like centre-backs this year, it's not necessarily a one-fits-all. So many different options you can go with. Like we've seen with a lot of left mids, from Sonny Baby to Rashford to obviously Leao. They can all play striker and play it pretty well. So there's not just a set option. There is definitely a set players that you want to get at the absolute tippity top. Mbappe, R9, even a Haaland, Mia Hamm, Eusebio, Cruyff, Pele. The whole shebang is always there. Like, they're pretty standard. But if you're looking for the lower sort of style, maybe looking at a couple of hundred, maybe even a cheeky 100,000 to be able to kind of start that team, I think the easiest options for golds that you'd be looking at, Son is always one of them options. Sophia Smith is definitely one of them options. I think if you can utilise him well, Griezmann can be very useful in and around the box. Peugeot definitely losing a little bit of value. I'd say for me, they would kind of be my top three golds. I'd be looking at Smith, I'd be looking at Griezmann, I'd be looking at Son. SBC wise, Alex Morgan was a cracking option you could have gone for. Upgraded wise, I think when we look down the list of strikers, you've got so many kind of top end that it does outweigh a lot of the middle, because you're like, well, if I'm going to spend 1.5 mil on Drogba, I might as well save a little bit more and go for an Mbappe for free. Obviously, it's a little bit more higher price to get, but that kind of is the point. If you're spending so much on a striker, we know Del P will be good, Torres will be good, Zola will be good, Drogba will be. There's so many good players. There's no kind of leeway to the bottom at the moment. We haven't had masses amounts of kind of SBCs for icons that give you all the icons as well. We've had a max of 88 and that's it. So no 89s, 90s or 91s have been packed, meaning they're still at that crazy amount of pricing. Like Raul, 1 million coins. Go and get Griezmann, Smith or anybody along that list, because there is no point spending 1,000,000 coins on him there to do the same job that you probably get off most of these strikers. As we go further down, Nunes is looking more and more fantastic by the day. I personally really like Robbie Keane as well. I think both of them as options for SBCs will get you quite far in the game. Rutter, I think Rutter's a great SBC if you did him as well. Maybe losing a little bit of perspective now on what he can actually do, but he was absolutely rapid still going into that second week of him being out. As we go a bit further down, you've obviously got the Inaki Williams for the right-hand side who could play striker. You're looking kind of more to the Morientes sort of stuff, maybe even a cheeky closer for the aerial plus. And as we go further into the golds, I'm not a big fan of Haaland. I think you could get something out of him, but he's not my personal go-to, but he's still there as a high-rated striker if you really want. Sesko, very good striker as well. Lewandowski, maybe with his total rush version, but I think that one's still coming in expensive. And then again, it goes down to the evolutions. Looking at Nicholas Jackson, what he can do, especially with this 100 club, the amount of strikers that you can go with here, if we can evolve them. There is so many with decent stats across the board. Like there is just a solid amount that you could just go for. If you've not got a top-end striker, it's a free evolution. I mean, what more can you ask for there? Now, obviously, if you have been lucky, then you could go ahead and use some of the strikers you got. I personally managed to get Mbappe, which has been more than useful for me. He will always be the number one, but again, I wouldn't really go out and pay for him to lose all them coins because naturally he will drop down pretty quickly, to be fair. He will drop massively as we go through Black Friday and then we keep going. So if you've not been lucky enough to pack him yet, then obviously I would be looking at a Griezmann, a Smith, whatever I need to link in to be able to get this done. And to be honest, that is all you need. And I think not necessarily like, whoa, that's all I need. It's like it's still a 1,000,000 coin squad. But realistically, I don't need to go any higher at the moment until we get a mass, kind of like almost a mass injection of special cards going into everybody's team. Most people, minus Mbappe, have around about this team. If you've played every week, every champs, every rivals, this should be roughly where your team's sitting. Couple of changes could be dependent on your best players. And that's really all you need in this game for the next probably month until we see what the Black Friday promo is. So let me know down below your favourite players. Who would you change out? Is there anybody different in your team that you've packed that you want to flex? Leave it down below and make sure you subscribe whilst you're there. And I will catch you all for the next time. Peace.